Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Business of Books with Beyond the Book Media. We are having our next author, Dr. Dwight Owens, is going to be speaking to us tonight about his book, Depression in the Pews. So as you come on, I want you to say hello. I want you to share this broadcast out. This is a conversation that you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss. We are going to be talking about depression in the pews with Dr. Dwight Owens. So thank y'all for coming. So I want y'all to go ahead in the comments, say hello, tell us where you're checking in from. I want you to tag a friend. I want you to share this with a friend because we want to really empower you to be bold about this topic. I'm loving his book. It's already in my Amazon cart. I'm going to order right after this. But first, I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Dwight Owens, and then we're going to get started with this very important conversation that we need to have. So come on, tell me. I don't see any comments yet, so I'm assuming y'all already typing y'all comments. So I will see it come through, and I'll say hello, and I will greet each and every one of you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I am going to let him introduce himself because of course he'll do a better job than me. But first, I forgot. Let me tell you who I am. I'm Nikisa. Y'all should know me if you don't. I am one of the writing coaches for Beyond Book Media. This is my first time doing an interview for this. So I know y'all like, where's the other person? But it's me today. So you have a treat on tonight. So good evening, Jacinta. Good evening, Pat. So let me introduce Dr. Owens so we can hop right into this topic. So Dr. Owens is the chief psychiatrist for Peachtree Psychiatric Services in Atlanta, Inc. No, I'm sorry. The chief psychiatrist for Peach State Psychiatric Services. He received his bachelor's degree from Morehouse here in Atlanta. That's where I am. He received his medical doctorate in Health Science Center at Syracuse in 1994. He is a board certified adult and general psychiatrist. So he is board certified. So he is a medical doctor. He is a psychiatrist, not to be confused with a psychologist. So he is a medical doctor, right? So he has worked with forensic populations in Forson and DeKalb. That's Atlanta. He is from see, someone said, hey, Dr. O from Macon, Georgia. He does work in Macon, Georgia. He's from Macon, Georgia as well. He has a lot of like he's been on. He has an amazing, I just want to say that you are amazing. Okay. Like I was reading, I was like, oh my God, he's been on some of the amazing shows. He's been on Sister Circle, Mind, Body, and Soul with TD Jakes. He has a number of accolades, y'all. He is amazing. So I would love for you, Dr. Owens, to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks for having me tonight. As you said, I'm a board certified psychiatrist. I'm practicing in Atlanta and Macon at this time. I'm a native of Atlanta. I trained in upstate New York in Syracuse. After that, I did forensics at Emory. I have worked in the general, I've worked in the forensic population. I've worked at Fulton County Jail, DeKalb County Jail, and Lee Arundel State Prison. I've also worked in community mental health, where I've been both a clinical director as well as a medical director for their facilities. I treat ages about 7 or 5 all the way to about 89, 90. I'm part of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, 100 Black Men of America, and the National Medical Association, as well as I'm a fellow of the American Psychiatric Association.
Oh wow. I love like what you've done for our community. I feel like we really need representation in this community, and I just love what you do. So before I spoil it for other people, I would love to know. So you have a book called Depression in the Pews, which can be found on Amazon. We're gonna get that link for you so you all can go and buy his book tonight. You can go ahead and buy his book tonight. So we're gonna get that link for you and put it in the comments. But I really want to know what inspired you to write this book. What inspired you to write a book called Depression in the Pews?
Well, I'm also a Sunday school teacher. I work in the church as well. So a lot of people in the church have issues with depression, anxiety, um, relationship issues. So there were a lot of questions that were coming. Um, about maybe 2 years ago, I did a workshop in a national conference, national church conference, and there were so many people that were very hungry. They had a lot of questions about depression, schizophrenia, bipolar illness, and anxiety. And I was able to share at that time, but I was dependent upon other people's writings. I was dependent upon other articles from other people. So what happened was that inspired me to create something that I could use as a tool when I'm talking about the disease, when I'm training and teaching others. So this book was basically inspired by those that inspired me. So I'm prayerfully the book will certainly help others who have some basic questions about the medical illnesses that fall in the area of mental health.
Yeah, that is so good. And I love that you poured in the fact that you're a Sunday school teacher and your book is called Depression in the Pews, because this can be something that's very stigmatized, especially in church, because we're told to pray the depression away. Or like when we was on Clubhouse, someone said the devil is in you because you have depression. And I'm a nurse, I'm in the medical field too. And I know that to not be true, right? Like I think that in our minds, we believe that because we're saved, then we cannot believe that we have something going on mentally. Like you can't, the two can't coexist. I think it's something that we are taught. And I just love that God gave you this idea to really sit down and create something that can be carried and people can actually use. So I would love for you, I know you told us what inspired you to write the book. I really would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about the book. Like what is this book about?
The book Depression in the Pews, A Silent Killer. The topic, just to give you the title, Depression in the Pews, what about that title? Well, it's specifically in order to be in a pew, you have to be in a church. So when I say depression in the pews, I'm talking to people that are connected to our church and to God. So these are people that are ushers, that are choir members, that are Sunday school teachers, that are pastors, that are deacons, that are sitting in the church, but they have the veil over their face, not showing the true image of what their mood is. So this book is really one of those kind of quiet books that you can read in the corner by yourself, and you can maybe find yourself inside of one of the pages.
Yeah.
But what I'm hoping happens, if you find yourself inside of one of the pages, you will certainly get help. So Depression in the Pews is for people that know God, that have been told that you can't have faith and be depressed, that are told that saved people don't get sad. They do. Or that are told that saved people don't commit suicide. They do. So this book is for the reader who may be feeling some type of triangulation between the relationship with God and the medical illness of depression.
That is so good. I'm so glad that you like made that clear that it's called Depression in the Pews for a reason. So you know exactly who we're talking to, because there are a lot of things stigmatized in the church, and this is one of, I believe, the biggest ones. And I think that even I know now we hear people talk about it because you have this amazing book that you put together, but there's still so many people in the church who are still told to pray about this topic. They're never told to get strategy. They're never told to seek help. And if they are, it's not a psychiatrist. It's go talk to someone. So go talk to a therapist. Go talk to a coach. Go talk to your friend. It's not like go talk to a psychiatrist. So I just love the fact that God has like ordained you to be a psychiatrist and have this amazing background. And even though I am of the thought, now this is just me, I'm of the thought that God qualified you so other people could be quiet. But I believe that you are probably already qualified, if that makes sense. Because we know that with God, you don't have to have all of these accolades, but you needed them. And he made sure it was a robust, and I just commend you for your accomplishments because your resume and your bio is outstanding. And I just love to see our community really go into a field that is even stigmatized and still say, hey, and I'm a part of the church. I think that's a level of boldness that only God can give. So I just thank you for what you're doing to impact our communities. And I just thank you for this book. So Jacinta dropped the link. So y'all go ahead and get this book. in your carts. Go ahead and buy this book, Depression in the Pews. We're going to open up for questions in just a few, but I really want y'all to hear what he's saying. Like, you do not have to suffer in silence. So I would love for you to really say, what are those 3 takeaways that we're talking to the church right now? What are the 3 takeaways that we're going to get when we open this book up?
One is that depression is a medical illness. And it's the stigma that, mentally ill, all of that is real, but depression is a medical illness. And 2, it is treatable. And that, we have remedies that can help you, some medication and some therapy. And number 3, there are some solutions. So the book really goes through defining a lot of what depression is, what it does, how it smells, how it tastes. Then it lets people know that, you can be saved and depressed. So it specifically attacks the lack of faith theory. It's like, hey, you don't have no faith, and that's why, you ain't praying enough. You got to let God change you, or you got to go shake at church and it's going to all be over. No, there are ways that we treat depression. And so the book kind of gives you a lot more insight into it, and it's very helpful for those who really know.
So I would love for you, just for our audience to know, as we go and get this book, I would love for you to just begin to give us what are some signs that maybe either ourselves or our leader may be dealing with signs of depression, because I think that we think depression is what we see on TV. Like, we just all under the cover, we ain't doing nothing. So I would love for you to do that. We'll definitely get to your question next, Trina. Okay. Well, I would love to know some signs of depression.
Depression, it takes 2 weeks of what we call a depressed mood or anhedonia. Now, depression is what it says, what it smells like, what it tastes like. But then there's anhedonia. Anhedonia is when you are like, just don't want to do anything. You say, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm just going to stay in the house. I'm going to read. I'm going to watch some old movies. When really you are isolating yourself away and you just don't have any interest and you don't really want to do anything. But 2 weeks of that, plus what we call 5 neurovegetative signs and symptoms. One is you can't sleep. You either can't get to sleep, you can't stay asleep, or you have early morning awakenings. The next is guilt, hopelessness. The guilt of your past is hovering over you. You remember what happened to you when you were 8. You remember when your grandmom died. You remember when dad walked off and left the family. Energy, you have no energy. It's just like, ugh. 5-hour energies. Coffee, caffeine. You're doing 2 cups of coffee in the morning, 3 cups in the afternoon. You can't focus. You pick up a book, read it, this book, and you're on page 1, and an hour later, you're still on page 1 because you can't concentrate. Your appetite is gone. Now, the reverse of that is you can eat too much. So the thing about depression, you can eat too much or you can eat too little. When you eat too much, sometimes you crave carbohydrates. You got a bag of potato chips in your purse. You got cookies on the side of your bed. You look in your car, you got a whole stack of Tootsie Rolls and all this candy because you're craving sweets and carbohydrates. That's a sign of a particular type of depression. And the most serious symptom is suicide ideation. That's when you think, I'd be better off not here.
Yeah.
I should die. The future is hopeless. I am no good. The world is no good.
Wow. That was good. Thank you. Because I know that some of those symptoms that you named, we could just say, oh, they're just greedy, right? They want all the snacks, because that's what we'll do. We'll try to like brush it off and say, and we won't look at it as a symptom, or if somebody's being irritable. And I would love, I get some of these questions in the comments, but we may see somebody being irritable and they're like, oh, they're just angry all the time. They're just irritable all the time. And we will gloss over something that's a real problem, which leads to this question that Trina asked. I'm gonna put it on the screen. She said, can you be depressed and not know it?
Most people probably, if you don't come to the attention of a medical professional or a licensed clinician, yes, you can be depressed and not know it. As a matter of fact, the other illnesses are what bring a lot of people to the doctor.
Wow.
The cold all the time, cold intolerance, weight loss. Why am I losing weight? You're losing a lot of weight because you're not eating. And then what will happen is you'll do this complete workup, and at the end of the day, you'll find out that the person is depressed. So yes, you can be depressed and not know it. It says faith over fear. I'm not quite sure of what faith over fear would mean, but I have to tell people depression is a medical illness. It has absolutely nothing to do with your faith. And a lot of people, give you an example, when you have a loss. If you lose a friend or loved one, it don't matter how much faith you got, you feel it. The depth of the relationship is directly proportional to the depth of the grief. So you can't tell a person, hey, you just lost your sister, your brother, your mom, your dad. Just believe God and you're going to be okay. No, there's a process of grieving. There's a process of grief, because if you don't grieve appropriately or you don't process the grief correctly, you can fall into a major depressive episode. And that has to be treated very much so differently than grief.
Wow. That is so good. I love how you use the context of us having a good understanding, because we will, like I kind of said earlier, like we have a thought that you can't have faith and be going through something, right? You have to be super, super faith, like even when you're hurting. But even we see in the Bible where when you think about Job, who lost everything, at the end, God dealt with his friends for how they dealt with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sent people to be around him and what he was dealing with, because that was a lot. Let that happen to one of us. So there was another question before I get into your writing process that I thought was really interesting, because we're talking about the church. And I think this is also an area that gets confusing for people, which is, where does deliverance fit in with conquering depression?
Okay, that's a very good question. Deliverance and medical treatment. Deliverance and medical treatment. Your faith is elementally lined up with the concept of deliverance, but everybody doesn't have the same measure of faith. So can you go to a wonderful service and be delivered from depression? Yes, you can. I will never challenge that. But you have to keep in mind that depression is a medical illness. So Vanessa, even after you get delivered in that wonderful service and God lifts up the depression off of you and you feel wonderful and the endorphins are running and you can leap over tall buildings in a single bound, go to your doctor in about 4 or 5 days. Let that doctor tell you you're now delivered. Let's stop the medications. Here is the danger. If you stop medications on your own and there was not true deliverance, there's something called a withdrawal dysphoria. That is even worse sometimes than the initial depression.
Yeah.
So if you come off that medication too early or without the supervision of a physician, your depression can intensify, because you got to remember we're blocking receptors to help in the neurochemistry of the brain. So you stop your medication because you done got delivered, and then you're walking around like confused and in a brain fog because it was a momentary feeling, but not necessarily clarity to the medical disease.
Yeah. And I also think when even when you deal in deliverance, there's a walking out process that has to occur, right? But I'm no deliverance minister, so we're gonna stick with your answer. But there is a walking out process, and that is what we are talking about. So we're going to get some more of your questions. So keep putting y'all questions down. Y'all, welcome to the Business of Books. We are talking to Dr. Miles Owen. That's it. Your name is not Miles, Dr. Owens. Sorry, I'm so sorry. We thank you for coming to talk about your book, Depression in the Pews. So what I want you to talk about, because the questions are coming, so I really want to get to y'all questions, but I really want to talk about your book. I want to go back to your book. I want you to talk about what your writing and your publishing process was like, because it seems like a really good book, and I really would love to know what it was like.
It was really great. Birth in prayer and supplication to Christ, of course, first. And I had a wonderful team beyond the book, and they were very patient. I am a practicing physician, so I don't have a whole lot of extra time. They were there with me every step of the way. They were patient, they were kind. We did a lot of edits back and forth. It took us some years to get through the process, but I think that we're very pleased with the final project. And, I would get a little encouraging word from him every now and then. Hey, Dr. Owens, how's it going? You got your manuscript ready to come back?
Yes.
And I thought that was great. It wasn't like bang, 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 you got to get in or we're going to drop you. No threats. Always clear. You're always kind, always concerned.
Yes, that is Beyond the Book Media for you. So I work for Beyond the Book Media, right? I'm a writing coach, so I help authors write their books. And then I also was a client. So I have to attest that they are so patient. Like, they have that fruit of the spirit on lock. And you get that feel like, oh my God, they're going to be like, where you been? But I think it's also a testament to all the other authors out here. Like, you can do this. He was in between seeing patients. We done read a piece of his resume. We didn't even give y'all the whole dibs on who he is. Y'all need to go read his book, and y'all need to follow him on social media to see the other amazing things that he does. But he even found the time to put out the book and solve a huge problem that we have now, even now, inside of the church. So I just love how you're really honing in on the fact that you can have faith and still be dealing with depression.
Mm-hmm.
You can. So I just love that. So we do have a question. She asked, Vanessa asked, what type of depression is Craving Sweets associated? Is it can you answer that question?
Yeah, it's more with atypical depression, or what we would call seasonal affective disorder, that you'll see in females. It's more in the winter months. So you'll see it around like November, December, January, February. It's also something called latent paralysis, where the females don't really feel like getting up or doing anything, but they gain a lot of weight. And we treat that with medications and with light therapy as well.
Oh, wow. I don't even want to. Somebody asked them this. They asked a question about treatment, so I'm gonna let them answer this question. I think that is so interesting, though, about light therapy. Can you tell me what light therapy? I'm sorry, I just gotta ask. Can you tell me a little about light therapy? Is that just like going outside in the sun?
Yes, no, it's actually some actual light, and you use it. It's more like in northern climates, like I went to school in Syracuse, where they don't have a lot of sunlight.
Okay.
So what you'll do is for 30 minutes, you'll sit in front of what we call a lux light. And that lux light hits the back of the eyes, and it's therapeutic for people with depression. Sun is good for people that are depressed. So, and you have people with what we call seasonal affective disorder. We do use light therapy along with the traditional pharmacotherapies.
Wow. That is so interesting, because I remember, we all been in this pandemic, right? So I remember when I was in this pandemic, so I'm living with HIV, so I'm an HIV advocate. So I stayed in the house longer than a lot of people because I was still on the don't go nowhere list. But what I would do to keep myself feeling like I did something is I made sure every day I went outside. And I did not know I was giving myself a little bit of therapy. I was just going outside. I was like, I can't sit in this house. I got to get out of this house. And I'm an introvert. So for a while it worked. And I was like, no, this ain't working for me. I need to go outside. I need to feel normal. I need to sit outside, have a cup of coffee, do something that's not in this house, because I'm tired of being in this house. And so thank you. That was so good. So thank you for answering that question for me. I'm going to get back to the questions from the audience. So if you have questions, I want you to put your questions below. This is your opportunity. Also, go and get your book right now on Amazon. Let's get his book. Let's go ahead and buy so many books for him tonight and really use this book and don't, get it because he's amazing and we want to support him. But also you can take this back. So get one for yourself, get one for your pastor, get one for people who need it because this book is monumental. And I am just so honored to even be able to interview you. I'm loving this interview. But let me put the next question up. Is medication the only answer to depression? I know you just kind of answered this, but
No, basically, when you come to depression, you want to have treatment planning. Usually, we use both medications and therapy. Some people choose to start with therapy first. Cognitive behavior therapy is one approach where we capture the automatic negative thoughts and we kind of eradicate those automatic negative thoughts. We also address catastrophic thinking. What if? What if I die? What if I flunk the test? What if my husband leaves me? What if my wife leaves me? What if I eat too much? What if I eat too little? So we address that catastrophic thinking. Now, medications, we believe, according to the clinical research in psychiatry, that cognitive behavior therapy and medications can help treat a first episode.
Wow.
If a person has a depressive episode with psychosis or what you call a nervous breakdown, that's another form of treatment. So anytime reality testing is impaired, you have to use pharmacotherapy. You don't want to just be doing talk therapy because people don't know what's real and what's not real. So you really got to help them get out of that distress.
Wow. Thank you so much for answering that question. I have a question. So if you have a question, put it below. And I really wanted to ask you this when we was on Clubhouse, but I feel like this is appropriate. Are there differences of signs of depression in men and women?
Yeah. Well, women tend to go to the doctor, number one. Men tend to repress their mood. But actually, when you look at studies, the incidence of depression is equal in male and female.
Wow.
The difference is females go to the doctor, but females attempt suicide, males complete suicide. So if we say we're going to kill ourselves, we kill ourselves. Females would, do some superficial cutting, try to run off the road. But if a male says he's going to kill himself, 9 times out of 10, he's going to be successful. He has a made up mind. So with us, we have this structural hierarchy in America that says we should take care of our families, we should take care of our kids, we should do this, we should do that. But if we can't do it, then what do you feel? You begin feeling like a failure. A lot of people say that Black men are angry, but what happens to anger? When anger is out there and you're angry for so long, anger becomes turned inward. And anger turned inward is a primary etiology of depression. That's based on Freudism concepts. So you'll find a lot of people say, well, why are you angry? Well, mom left me when I was 7. Father been in absentia. I never knew who my father was. My grandmother raised me, and it was a wonderful world. Grandmama did everything for me, but my parents weren't there. So initially, you forget. But then when you go to high school graduation, you look around, everybody's parents are there except yours. So that anger becomes primitive rage, and primitive rage has to be dissipated.
Wow, that is so interesting. That even makes me think like I just know that I'm always interested how times change, right? So when I was a child, it was a lot different than how I'm now raising my children. So I'm always concerned about their emotional health, like how they're doing, and what's going on, what they're thinking about, and make sure they have a space to like express themselves. But I think that's really interesting how depression, one cause could be anger turned inwardly. But somebody does have a question. Dr. Miles Clark, in your opinion, does hoop style preaching contribute to depression in the pews by not teaching on solutions?
That's a very interesting question. I think that when it comes to dealing with any medical disease, hypertension, depression, anxiety, diabetes, the church has to provide an educational arm where we can educate ourselves about certain things, such as depression. We talked earlier about the difference between depression, sadness, and smiling depression. Um, Sadness is just a response to a particular event. Smiling depression is, Dr. Miles, when you have a person who's walking through life, they're very sad, they're very disturbed, but they're just, I'm good, everything's all right, everything's cool, but it's really not. Because when that person leaves church and they go home and they're sitting in silence, that's when the depression really cracks. But then there's major depression, which is a medical disease. So hoop style preaching is something that we enjoy in our culture. It is something that gets our emotions going. But if you're not learning, if you're not understanding who you are, if you're not understanding that there's something wrong, because I feel good at church, I can shout it out.
Mm,
But then when I get home, the shade comes down.
yeah.
You take off all your mascara, pull your wig off, and now you're looking in the mirror at the real you, and what you see you don't like. But it's not what you're seeing in the physical, it's what's in the eternal, the internal. You know, when I was 8 years old, my uncle touched me,
Mm.
but I never talked about it. But now when I smell that same cologne, I have a flashback. So these are some of the kinds of things that we have to teach people, not with the hoop, but on another forum where you can do conferences, teachings, and trainings to help people understand, and even a forum like tonight, where people can understand how these diseases look, smell, and taste.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Someone in the comments said, been there. Diva Nicole says, wow. I'm amazed at what smiling depression is. And I have been here, of course, I'm a nurse, so I know some of these things, but I don't work direct. I didn't work direct. I work in heart, the cardiac nurse here all day, right? But it did not absolve any of my patients from coming in with mental illness. So mental illness is everywhere. Like, just because a patient's coming in with a heart issue doesn't mean they couldn't have depression. And just like just because you're in church and you're in a choir doesn't mean you can't have depression. So I would love for you to kind of speak about depression in like church as far as leaders. And what are some strategies for them, even if it's like you that's dealing with it, like, so I'm the pastor, I'm dealing with it, or if it's Diva, I'm just saying that name in the comments, Diva Cole sees that it's in her pastor. What are some strategies and tools that you have? And y'all make sure y'all go get the book, because he's gonna give all the details in the book, but I just want him to tell y'all a little bit right now since we're here.
One thing I want to share is that if you recognize that a leader may not be feeling well, um, depressed, sad, anxious, a lot of issues, you if you have a relationship with them, you can utilize something called empathetic listening. That's a little bit different than offering sympathy, and the book defines that. Another thing, don't wait before taking initiative. If you notice in the service that I'm like, something's different, or I'm not my regular chipper self, or I didn't come over to borrow a piece of peppermint from you like I normally do every Sunday, give me a call. Don't wait to take initiative. And when you're working with a person and they're telling you, no, I really do miss my mom. I really do miss my dad. Oh, child, get over it. No. Acknowledge the pain. I understand you. You know, I feel you. I'm with you. I'm going to pray for you. Because a lot of times in the church, we want people to have a quicker picker upper. And that doesn't exist when there's a hole in your heart. You know, when people lose a parent, that's very devastating. You lose a child, that's even more devastating. But the most stressful thing known to man is the death of a spouse. So when people are experiencing pain, you don't have to be a doctor or a nurse, but kind of, like Lisa said, I understand, And then because a person tells you that they're anxious or depressed or going through some issues, that has nothing to do with lack of faith. Faith is your belief in God. Case in point, you can have high blood pressure and be saved. You can have sugar diabetes and be saved. You can have a broke arm and be saved. These are all medical illnesses: anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder. All of these are medical diseases and they have to be treated.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. They are medical diseases and they have to be treated. I just love how this interview is really destigmatizing mental illness, right? Well, our focus is depression, but all mental illness. I love how it's destigmatizing because it can be hard to wrap around your head. I got faith, but I'm also depressed. It can be very hard. And I love how you gave us some tips to talk to people and be empathetic. So it's not the time to go and say, well, I think you got depression. No, that's not how you go and handle that problem. Like if you see something or you notice something, you want to be very empathetic because we know there is a big stigma about this, especially in the church. And that is what we are talking about tonight. We're talking about depression in the pews. And it's not for you to go and try to say, oh, I know something now. It's more for you to go back and educate your communities. And then also for you to reach out to Dr. Dwight Owens and let him come into the church and really train you as well as get the book for yourself and other people, because this is a real issue. And God has created a solution through Dr. Dwight Owens. He has went through the best, Christian publisher, which is Beyond the Book Media. I just had to plug that, right? So he has done that. And I really want you all to really go out and support this book so that you can begin to educate yourself and then that you can start taking a look at not just the people around you, because we can get caught up in trying to look at it. Is it in my husband? Is it in my friend? But not take a minute to look at yourself and say, hey, do I have smiling depression? Hey, have I been feeling like this for 2 weeks? Hey, is this overeating I'm doing? Is it a problem or is it another issue? Is it a deeper issue? So thank y'all for coming. I want y'all to put y'all stuff in the comments. If you loving this interview, I want y'all to put in the comments that you loving it. Share this with a friend, tag a friend to come on. We're having a conversation around depression in the pews with Dr. Dwight Owens. What I want to know, I do have another question. I promise. I feel like I got a lot of questions. I'm trying not to take them all, but if they don't want to ask, I'm going to ask because this is very interesting to me. So if someone has started to take a look at themselves and say, hey, I feel like I might have some depression. I've been feeling this for a month now. What would be their first step to take? What is that first plan of action to take? Because that could be the hardest step.
If you have stigma, I would start my primary care doctor. Because you can talk to your primary care doctor and they can do some level of testing to help you kind of understand where you are and what's going on in the beginning. If the depression is disabling and you can't make it to work, it's affecting other areas of your life, you probably want to seek out a psychiatrist, a medical doctor. Now, you can go to therapy, and there's nothing wrong with therapy. But the reason why I always encourage people to go to a doctor first, because they're great imitators. Hypothyroidism. You can have too much blood pressure medication. You can have multiple sclerosis. That's a great imitator. Then some medical illnesses that look like depression. So when you come to see me, I'm going to ask you certain kinds of questions. Your medical history. When last time you saw a doctor? I'm even if you're female, I'm asking you about your cycle. Is it regular, irregular? There's certain things that a doctor's going to ask and can help you kind of conceptualize your illness that maybe a therapist can ask you on an initial exam. So that's why I will start with a doctor and then I will move to a therapist, go kind of backwards if you don't want to use medication. But there are some psychiatrists like myself that will do therapy.
Yeah. Wow. So what you're saying is a psychiatrist is not a psychologist.
Correct.
Correct, because a psychologist is that who, because I hear a lot of people say go to therapy. I've honestly never heard anybody say go see a psychiatrist. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I know what a psychiatrist is, but I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm depressed. Go have talk therapy." In your opinion, do you think that's because that's a little bit more accepted than saying I'm going to see a psychiatrist?
Um, yeah, people call me their therapist, but most people just call me the doctor.
Yeah.
He's my doctor. Um, and I'm a medical doctor. My specialty is psychiatry.
Okay.
So a lot of people just say when they see me in the office, that's my doctor.
Yeah.
If they see me out public, oh, most people that see me in public, turn their head.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people call me their doctor.
Their doctor.
My actual name is Dr. O. Hey, Dr. O, how's it going? Yeah. And that gives them a comfort level that they can, kind of speak to me about their issues. So they just call me the doctor. They don't say.
Yeah. I think that is a movement forward, right? At least we're going.
Yeah.
At least we're going. Like whatever you gotta say is because I know that it could be hard for some people because I deal with a community of people where stigma is huge too, because HIV and actually mental health are very closely related, because I think it's 25% of people diagnosed with HIV also have a mental illness. So it is a big deal. It's a lot, the area that I try to really, really focus on. So I'm happy to have this conversation because now I can also change my language and not just always be talking about therapy because I've been guilty, right? So I really love that. And I'm happy that people are coming. So what I want you to do now, so let me just recap. We're talking to Dr. O. I'm calling you Dr. O now because that's what they call you, Dr. O. We're recapping with Dr. O. He has a book called Depression in the Pews. I need all of y'all that's on here. And if you are watching the replay, I want you to hashtag replay. And I want you too to go ahead and get this book. This book sounds like a life changer. It has 5-star reviews. It was the top 50 books on Amazon. Listen, you want to go get this book. My book is in my cart. And the only reason I ain't processed it yet is because I have been interviewing Dr. O since 8 o'clock tonight. We've been on Clubhouse, and when they came over here to Club Facebook/YouTube. So listen, you want to go and get this book today. So I would advise you, if you have any questions that you want to ask Dr. O, to put them in the comments so that you can ask him about your questions, about his writing process, about the book, anything you want to ask that you feel led to ask him. I want you to take advantage of this opportunity because not only are you talking to a published author, okay, published by Beyond the Book Media, you're also talking to a doctor who knows what he is talking about. Diva Cole says she is in her cart right now. So they are getting the book. I'm so excited. So what I would love for you to talk about, I hear you got a blog. And since we're here, I would love for you to talk about it and also just tell us how we can stay connected to you. And I'll try to put it in the comments so people can follow you and things like that.
You certainly can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, but I also have X Dr. O is my blog, which I'm going to be doing more writing. I have not had the opportunity to write as much because I've been publishing my book, but also there's a lot of patience. Last year was a very, very critical year in mental health. I could see 22, 23 patients a day. Early at 7:30, latest, sometimes 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, because people really needed to see the psychiatrist or the doctor. There was a lot of death associated with COVID. There was something called COVID dysphoria, COVID anxiety. People lost their jobs. People lost their homes. So last year was pretty tough. So we had to work through the process with a lot of people, the process of death and dying. We had to work through that with people. And so it was really busy last year. So the blog is not as current as it should be, but it will be current within the next week. So you can always come to my Facebook page. We talk on Facebook page a lot. I may ask a question and start some stimulating discussion. I oftentimes do little video vignettes. I put them on Instagram and I put them on YouTube. So you can find Dr. O, or Ask Dr. O, and you can find out a lot about different diseases. I do little teaching and training videos, and they're there for your viewing as well.
Oh, right. So is it ask drdro.com?
Yes,
Okay.
Ask Dr. O. Yeah.
And that's the same thing for your Instagram and your Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Now that Facebook is Dwight A. Owens, I believe.
Okay. So listen, y'all, make sure y'all go and follow him, find him on social media. I'll make sure I come back in the comments and everything is right for you to find him. But also, the biggest thing is I want you to go to this Amazon link that we post a million times in the comments. And I want you all to go and get the book Depression in the Pews. Get one for yourself. Get one for your pastor. Get one for anybody you feel that this book will help. I want you to actually get it and read it. I would love for you to get it. I do have another question. Someone has a question. Vanessa has another question. Do you have a diverse clientele?
Yes, my clientele will be probably 60% non-African American.
Wow.
So yes, I have a diverse clientele. I have LGBT, I have African Americans, I have an Asian population, I have Hispanics as well. Yeah, it's very diverse. Male, female, it's very, very diverse. But it is not predominantly African American.
Wow. Do you think that the clientele you see is representative of the rates of depression, or do you think that African American, we just ain't going?
I think we don't go. I
Mhm.
think we're afraid of depression. I think we're not educated about depression. I think that forums such as this one, where people can be educated, taught,
Yeah.
and trained that this is a medical illness, just like any other medical illness, then people will come out more. But, you know, we like to have ADHD. Sounds good. But a lot of people with ADHD got PTSD, trauma.
Yeah.
Traumas manifest itself in hypervigilance, avoidance, irritability. They're all over the place. But it's easy to say that I have ADD than to say I have clinical depression.
Yeah, because I mean, that was when I was coming up. Like I'm 32 now. So when I was young, that was the thing. Like my brother had ADD. Like I think he came out the womb hyper. Like I remember him being 2. Like, but he was extremely, extremely brilliant. So I know for a fact he spent a lot of time not treated because he was so brilliant. Like this boy would act a fool, get suspended for weeks, and they'll have him in school to take a test, and he would pass the test like he'd been there the whole time. So I definitely could see how people would say I have ADD, but would not want to claim the depression because of the stigma that is placed besides depression. Just like in Clubhouse, they said that you could say you have cancer, but you can't say you have HIV, right? Like, even though you're going through some similar situations, of course it's not the same, but that I can definitely see that. And I'm just so happy that you come here in 48 minutes and really destigmatize this. And I hope that we are taking this back to our communities and not that we are changing our language about saying that you should just pray it away, right? I always say to people, because I don't like that either. Like, don't tell me to pray. Well, I've had my own situations with different things going on, especially with my diagnosis and having to go through adjustment disorder, adjusting to this things changing my life. I was 19 years old. So my whole life had to change and I was very young. So I always try to keep the language of, yeah, you can pray, but you're not trying to pray it away. You praying for, like, do I go to this doctor right here or this doctor right here? Like, is this the right psychiatrist for me? Is this the right therapist for me? Like, is this the road? Because I promise you, the Lord will tell you, like, you need to go take something. Like, you need some help. And you may not want to admit it, and you may try to rebuke it. Listen, you ain't going to rebuke that away. You got to get the help. And I hope that Dr. Dwight Owens has encouraged you to really keep a handle on your mental health, to really seek out help. And if you know you're having a hard time, I want you to take that first step to talk to your doctor. Take that first step. If you're seeing someone else, be empathetic. This is what Dr. Dwight Owens just taught me. So this is what I got, and I'm giving it to y'all. So thank you so much for this interview. I will just open up to see if you want to say anything else to our audience just about this topic, about your book, before we begin to wrap up. They are loving it. Vanessa is like, you're helping a lot. I am enjoying my book, Trina. So hold up. Oh, got one more question before we wrap up. Please speak to the role that church music plays on healing depression in the pews.
Okay. We do have something called music therapy that we use, but I want to be very cautious in sharing with people that only using church music. Because my preference would be soft music with no words.
Yeah.
Because sometimes some of the church music can pull on emotions. And if you get the wrong church music, you'll be trying to climb up the rough side of the mountain when the Bible says to speak to the mountain shall be moved. So you have to be very careful of how you utilize church music, because some of the church music, if you listen to the words, they don't line up biblically. And I do think there are some songs that are jubilant and that are faith encouraging, that gets the endorphins going. But I have to say, when it relates to depression is a medical problem. You mentioned talk therapy. I don't know what that is. There's no such thing in my abattoir. I've taken numerous board exams. You don't talk therapy on any. When people are doing therapy with you, you better be sure that they're credentialed and they have a license.
Okay.
Because you got these life coaches, you got all these people who may be talking, but there's no theory behind what they're doing. So you're spending your money paying these people for doing something called talk therapy. But if they don't know how to slice you open and gut out the trauma, then what'll happen is you get a temporary panacea. But then you'll find yourself in a couple of years, the depression will come back. First episode of depression lasts 9 months to a year. The second episode of depression lasts approximately 5 years. The third episode of major depression goes for a lifetime.
So you can have an episode for that 9 months and it not come back
if it's treated appropriately.
If it's treated appropriately. So what you're saying is, if you don't treat it and it goes away, when it comes back, it's going to stay longer.
Yes. So most people they have major depressive episode recurrent.
Wow, you have debunked so many myths. Okay, because first of all, I'm never gonna say talk therapy again. So I'm a life coach, but I be telling them quick, like, hey, I'm not a therapist. Listen, I'm coaching this area. I'm not a therapist. I am a nurse, but I'm not your nurse right now.
Right.
So thank you for saying. I just love how you just debunked so many myths. I'm gonna call you the myth debunker. Okay. That's what I'm gonna call you, because you don't understand, because we really think we really think we know something, right? So we start saying stuff because we heard somebody else, and it's like telephone. It's just passed down, and it's not theoretically correct. It's incorrect.
That's why if you have a lot of Facebook therapists, and you have some people that are, I have a big problem with honorary doctorates calling themselves doctor. If a doctor in a particular area means you've studied that information and you know that information. There are people that it sounds good, but what are you doctor of? because in order to be really a doctor, you have to publish. You have to have a specialized set of information. And a lot of time when people think about mental health, they just start talking and just making these affirmations. And I'm like, oh my God. And what concerns me is that there's somebody that's suicidal that's listening.
Mm.
There's somebody who's hurting, that has a trauma, that's listening, and it's not the correct information. That's why it's important to get these books out, like Depression in the Pews and other books that really teach and train people the real essence. I keep telling you, depression is a medical illness. Anxiety is a medical illness. OCD is a medical illness, like antisocial personality disorder. People think that antisocial personality disorder, oh, I'm anti, there's no sense, that's not true. Antisocial is something totally different. But
Yes.
people, they're blurted out, and I'm like, you're so wrong. You know, I mean, because it's really an antisocial person is a person that has some criminality attached.
Yeah.
You know, so but a lot of people feel like because you have a behavior or you don't feel like you're a recluse, that's called schizoid.
Yeah.
But people don't know about a lot of things.
Say words.
They begin to just talk and use words loosely, and then people get sicker, and then people don't come out.
Yeah, and that's just like a word a lot of people use loosely, which bothers me, is bipolar. Because you have attitude on Monday, now you bipolar. Like, and I'm like, do y'all know that first of all, there's different types of bipolar?
Yeah.
You have a type where they don't even get manic as much as hypomania, right? You don't even know what you're talking about, and you're not trained. Like, I don't even talk a lot about mental illness. I talk about making sure you get support and care, because I had a class on psychology. I took abnormal psychology, but I work with hearts. Ask me about your heart. We're gonna put a stent up there. You know, you got a blockage. I'll tell you what the heart works like. That was my specialty. Right. That's why I work. Whenever we dealt with someone who had mental illness, that had depression, anxiety, were on any of those type of medications, we consult psychiatry. Right. We consult psychiatry. That wasn't my field. So just thank you for saying that. I hope that this conversation has really helped y'all. I've really enjoyed this interview. I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you tonight. You have really helped me. I know you've helped both audiences. So y'all go out and get his book. Follow him on social media. He's going to be back right on his blog. I hope. Now, I have this little hat where I be giving people assignments. So I hope I ain't gave you no assignment, no pressure to go back on your blog. I don't be doing it on purpose, but I am really interested to see what more you have. I'm going to get off of this interview. I am going to get your book tonight. I thank you for sharing the stage with me. Someone said they're getting Vanessa said her book will arrive on Thursday. Y'all make sure y'all show him that it's real, and y'all leave a review so other people can see the book on Amazon. I'm so excited for what God is going to do through your life. I'm so excited for the next phase. I'm so excited for the workshops and the many other things that God is going to do with this book. I just see the curriculum already. So thank you so much for blessing the business of books. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end this interview tonight?
Get your book.
Yes, get your book. That's it. That's it. Thank you so much. Diva Cole said that this was amazing and enlightening. Thank you, sir. Blessings to you. I think that's a good point to end this interview. Y'all share this out. Get your books, and we will see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the Business of Books with Beyond the Book Media. Have a great evening.